Jack Hall, a paleoclimatologist, must make a daring trek from Washington, D.C. to New York City to reach his son, trapped in the crosshairs of a sudden international storm which plunges the planet into a new ice age.
This is Ryan.
And this is Ashley.
And that was a really long log line.
Yes, and immediately after this, I might Google paleoclimatologist to see if that's a real thing.
I have my doubts.
Or if it's a hybrid of made-up science jargon.
Do you think that's what they kind of do when they're writing a movie?
I think there was a time in 90s and early 2000s, probably before that too, 80s, especially before the internet, where they made up shit.
Yeah.
Because they're like, who would know the difference? Except for people that work in that field or people that live in that city. We've talked about it before. People notice.
Yeah.
And in 2021, people especially notice, and they have a platform to share when they notice when things don't make sense, such as podcasts. But anyway, hi guys, it's Ashley.
And Ryan.
And this is Ruining Our Childhood.
Yes. Our weekly podcast where we talk about movies and paleoclimatologists.
Yes, to see if they're real. And if their names are Jack Hall.
They give them the most basic name, Jack Hall, the most complicated occupation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you haven't guessed, this week we're doing the 2004 classic, The Day After Tomorrow, which kicked butt. I don't know why I censored myself. I say the F word so much on this podcast. It kicked ass on our poll.
I like how you're like, I say the F word, and I was like, but you censored the A word.
I don't know. I'm not consistent. If our listeners know anything about us, they know we're not consistent with anything.
That's very true. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who voted for this movie over the Pauly Shore movie.
Yeah, for sure.
If the Pauly Shore movie is the biggest loser and it's the last one we do for this bracket, I will be perfectly okay.
I know at the beginning of our whole loser bracket that we started last summer, we kind of did an estimation, which they totally went to shit. Or what's the word? The sports word they use? Predictions?
Yeah,
you
predictions.
filled out your bracket. And I know yours immediately went to shit right away. So I guess we could probably at least make guesses, which we did for a while at the end of each episode. So at the end of this episode, we can make our guess of what. Did we already do that? Am I doing one of those things where I'm creating something that we already do?
Well, I feel like we usually do it.
Yeah.
But we will for sure do it from now on.
Right. And we'll let you know what the movies are for next week at the end of this episode. So, yeah, definitely thank you, because I don't know if I was in the mood.
I was not.
I don't know if I'm in the mood to watch a dystopian movie, but, got to do it for the pod.
Yeah. And you guys picked it.
Yeah, that's true. They only had two choices.
Yeah, that's very
and
true.
And one was really bad. So, good times. So thanks everybody that voted in the Twitter poll and the Instagram poll, but they were very similar. I think it was like 70-30. So.
Yeah. I even voted for In the Army Now just because I had a feeling it was not getting a lot of support.
I don't know why you did.
I don't know why either.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
So let's go down memory road, not lane.
No.
Road. At Ruining Our Childhood, we go down the road.
Yeah.
Because Ryan doesn't know how to speak words.
Ryan doesn't know normal,
cliches.
Everyday cliches.
Hit us with some 2004 facts.
But Ryan knows the majority of the cliche, just not all of the cliche.
We should just rewrite a bunch of cliched sayings to be slightly different.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. Just for fun.
Yeah. So this movie was released on May 28th of 2004. It had a budget of $125 million, and it made $552 million. Popular TV shows from 2004 were CSI Miami, Without a Trace, and Survivor. CBS was very popular. The number one song the week the movie came out was Burn by Usher, and a couple other popular songs were The Terror Squad, Lean Back, and Sierra featuring P.D. Pablo, Goodies.
Mm-hmm.
And some popular movies were Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, The Bourne Supremacy, and National Treasure.
Nice.
Yeah.
I do remember this movie, but I don't think I saw it in theaters. Though, did Shrek 3 come out?
Let me look. Shrek 2.
Shrek 2.
Yeah.
Because I was a senior in high school when this movie came out, and it was at the end of my senior year, and we had a senior skip day. He's back. So just a little background, guys. If you hear a ice cream man truck, we've been trying to record this intro for a good 45 minutes.
Yes.
Because our neighbor decided to order all of the ice cream from the ice cream truck guy.
Yeah, it was parked in front of their house for a solid 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just playing over and over again.
Yeah. And fun fact, we're recording this in January.
Yeah.
This wasn't
I like
magically...
how like fun fact, like it's May.
this wasn't... We didn't randomly record this episode and try
In
to
the
slide
future.
it out in June. No, January.
But we do live in Arizona, Ryan. You're so every time we hear the ice cream man, he's like, why do people want to buy ice cream? Because it's 60 degrees outside. To everybody else, that's perfectly normal weather for ice cream.
I guess. I say it like I didn't eat ice cream in the last month.
Yeah.
Totally did.
You're weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think he left. So
He
good.
did.
So anyway, senior high school, we had senior skip day, and I remember like people were trying to decide what movie to go see, and I think a lot of people went to see Shrek 2 instead of this movie, because it sounds like this movie came out on Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
And it was the Monday after Memorial Day, or it was like that Monday that we skipped school. So
I don't know how I missed this one.
Oh.
Didn't see it in theaters, and I looked at, the top 10, and I'm like, I saw Bourne Supremacy, I saw National Treasure, I saw Shrek 2, Spider-Man 2. So
Did you see National Treasure or National Treasure?
National Treasure. I don't know how I missed it. You know when I saw this movie?
What?
Was we were at your parents' house, and I was looking at your dad's DVD collection, and we borrowed it.
Yeah.
And we've never returned it.
That's true. This was during his phase where he literally bought every single new release that came out every Tuesday.
Yeah.
And this was one of those ones. Regardless if it was a good movie or not, my dad bought it.
Yeah.
In 2004.
That explains why we started dating in 2006. I just felt like I was at a Blockbuster and looking at the classics.
Yeah.
From 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now is when we ask ourselves the question, do we think this movie is going to hold up? And what do you think?
I'm going to say no, because I think there's going to be some technology they use and graphics, special effects that will not hold up. And I feel like there'll be some dated technology in general used.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to maybe some good Well Hello There and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be a fun watch, but I don't think the movie in general is going to hold up.
Right. I would say I probably haven't seen this movie since we borrowed it. And I don't even think we watched it, did we?
We did, because that's the only time I've ever seen it.
Okay. I felt like we borrowed it and we didn't watch it for like 2 months. I think that's the case.
No, I think it was like 2 years.
Oh.
I think we borrowed it in like 2007. Didn't watch it till like 2009, and still haven't given it back to your dad.
I don't think he's complaining.
He seems really upset about it.
Yeah, I agree, especially about the special effects. I feel like we've watched movies that are about 10 years old, and their special effects were dated, not great. So I assume this is going to be just as bad. I definitely agree there's going to be quite a few Well Hello There's to talk about, so that will be fun. And there's probably going to be things that don't make sense, because these end of the world type movies, they just like to throw a lot of sciencey jargon at you. And if I was more educated with science and climate change, maybe I would be able to poke more holes in it, but we'll see.
We should find a paleoclimatologist to come on the podcast.
If it's a real thing.
Yeah. And we'll find it in the next couple hours because we're going to go watch the movie here in a second and then talk about it and see if this is an actual thing.
I mean, I feel like people think it is.
I believe it.
I don't know if that's exactly how it's going to go down when we've destroyed this world completely, but I wouldn't totally dismiss it either, you know?
Yeah.
So,
where can you stream this movie?
You can rent it and buy it on all of the streaming apps, it looks like, but unfortunately it's not on Netflix or anything like that, of course. I feel like there's no movies on Netflix. Netflix has a bunch of movies, right? But none of the ones that we want to watch.
Yeah. And I feel like Hulu's selection has become terrible.
Yeah, it really is. And then Amazon Prime is literally just like all of Hulu's movies except for a couple randoms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like Netflix hits it out of the park on TV shows to
Yes.
stream. Not so much on the movie side.
I agree. You have to wade through a lot of shit to get to some good ones.
Yeah.
You know? I feel like somebody's like, they have plenty of great movies, Ashley and Ryan.
We're going to get a message.
Well, no good 90s or 2000s ones that we're looking for the podcast.
Yes. Like Airheads.
Never forget. Shall we hit that pause and go watch this beast?
We shall.
Okay, we'll be
Okay.
back.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, and we're back. We just finished watching The Day After Tomorrow, and we're going to go ahead and break down our movie with our categories, like we always do. And our first category is, Well, Hello There,
Well, hello there.
where we talk about any cameos of famous or recognizable actors or actresses that we forgot were in the movie. Who did you notice?
So there was a lot.
Yes.
Go figure. In the past year did Deep Impact. And this movie kind of reminds me of that, where there's just so many characters coming in and out. But we might have covered everybody between the two of us.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was
We'll
gonna say,
see.
we both came up with quite the list.
So the first character I'll discuss is Jack Hall, played by Dennis Quaid. Obviously, Dennis Quaid is from The Parent Trap, a recent movie we did.
Yes.
And also, he's going to be playing Ronald Reagan in a biopic, and one of his other movies that's quite popular is Frequency.
Mm-hmm.
He's Dennis Quaid.
He's Dennis Quaid. My first one is one of his coworkers, I guess another scientist or paleoclimatologist.
Climatologist.
Yes.
It's a real thing, by the way.
Yes, it is. And that was the character Frank, played by J.O. Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing I always remember him from is he was the announcer and TV commentator for the Angels in the Outfield.
Yeah, well, he was in another movie we did, right? Because I remember you saying that.
He was, and I don't know what it was.
I kind of briefly looked over his IMDb and I couldn't find it, but I did see that he was on The Good Wife. He was a judge.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say he was not a nice judge, or he was like a judge that was sending poor kids to juvenile detention and was getting paid for it.
Okay. I could definitely see him being a villain or a
a dick.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
got that face. He was also in JFK and Revolutionary Road.
My next one is Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay.
He plays Sam Hall. Jake Gyllenhaal, you might know him from Donnie Darko, Brokeback Mountain. More recently, he was in Spider-Man Homecoming, and he's got like 9 movies in the works.
Really?
Yeah, I was looking at his IMDb. It's like, whoa, calm down, man.
Jeez.
It's a lot of things.
I was trying to remember what the first thing that I remember him being on was, and I looked it up because I didn't see Donnie Darko, and I did not see October Sky. The big thing I remember him from was Bubble Boy.
I did see October Sky, I think, before. If it did come out before Bubble Boy.
Yeah, it came out a couple years before.
But I would say that Bubble Boy was like the first movie that I noticed him in.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, we rewatched City Slickers years ago, and he plays Billy Crystal's son, I think.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. My next one is Professor Rapson, who is played by Ian Holm. And the big thing which I did not recognize and could not place him as, he is Bilbo Baggins from the Lord of the Rings films and also the Hobbit films.
Yeah. I was like, he looks so familiar. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
My next one is Dash Myhawk, who we've talked about him on the podcast before, because he was in Romeo plus Juliet. Baz Luhrmann's. And he's in Silver Linings Playbook, but he plays Jason, and he's part of Dennis Quaid's character's paleoclimatologist's team. I'm getting really used to saying that word now. Like, it's just a word that rolls off my tongue. It's
like the word "the." Just rolls right off the tongue. The other thing I noticed he was in is he's one of the main people on Ray Donovan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The next one for me was the character of Dr. Lucy Hall, played by Celia Ward. She was on Sisters when I was a young lad, and also more recently was in the movie Gone Girl and the TV show FBI.
Yeah. When I was looking her up, I realized she played Harrison Ford's wife in The Fugitive. So she doesn't have a very big part because, spoiler alert, in The Fugitive, his wife dies. Yes. That's the whole plot of the movie. That's how the conflict starts. But I didn't know that. My next one is Sasha Rouse. I don't know if that's how you say his last name. He plays Parker, which is one of the astronauts that are kind of watching all this stuff go down. Because, you know, when you have an apocalyptic movie, you have to have people in space going, what is happening?
Yeah.
But the biggest thing I know him from is he plays the police captain in Grimm, and I didn't even look up what else he's been in lately, but he's been in a lot of TV shows, I feel like.
That is the only thing I wrote down that he was in as well. Because I was like, he's the guy from Grimm.
That's the most important.
Yeah. My next one is the character of Laura, played by Emmy Rossum.
Yes.
Who was in Phantom of the Opera and on Shameless.
Yeah. That's true. Fiona Gallagher.
Thank you for getting her character name, because I could not remember it.
Another character played by Austin Nichols. One of the teenagers that they meet in New York when Jake Gyllenhaal and his friends go to... what is it? Like it's not a debate. It's I don't know. It's a nerdy club.
I was going to say...
They're smart.
It's a competition where they ask you a bunch of questions, and the smart kids are there.
Yeah. Austin Nichols is from One Tree Hill, The Walking Dead. He's been in a bunch of things.
Academic Decathlon?
That sounds right, yeah.
There we go. Pulled that out. Whoop. My next one, he plays a news anchor, Tommy the news anchor.
Yeah.
And that is Tim Bagley. He was in Knocked Up, Monk, and the thing that I know him most from was Will and Grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that he was on Grace and Frankie, and that's weird. Will and Grace, Grace and Frankie. Yeah, definitely remember him from Will and Grace.
Yeah.
The next one is Tamlin Tomita. She plays Janet, which is, I'm not quite sure what she is. She's also a scientist, I would say. And she's one of the only people that believes that anything is happening, or believes Jack when he says his theory of what's happening. She's literally the only one that's like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
She's in Cobra Kai more recently, but she's been in a bunch of stuff. Chasing Life, if anybody watched that show on ABC Family / Freeform, and Teen Wolf.
Okay.
She had a reoccurring character in that. So
lots of very recent things.
Yeah.
My next one is the cameraman for Tommy, which you pointed out to me.
Yeah.
It was J.P. Manox, and he is the fake Moby on How I Met Your Mother, the Doppeldean on Community, and he was also had a pretty long arc on Veep.
He's been in a bunch of stuff. My last one, well, technically my last one, well, actually, sorry, I skipped around a little. R.J. Smith plays Brian Parks, which is Sam's friend. The thing I remember him from was Malcolm in the Middle. He had like a reoccurring character.
Okay.
But more recently, he's been on Sons of Anarchy and The Rookie with Nathan Fillion.
Ooh.
I said Nathan.
Nathan. Yeah. My last one is the actor is Rick Hoffman. He is just a passenger on a bus. He pays to get on the bus.
Was he the dick?
Yes.
That you're just like, you're going to die soon.
Exactly. He was in the movie The Condemned with Stone Cold Steve Austin. But the big thing he's on, I was like, he has a very familiar face, is he was a like one of the stars of Suits.
Oh, yeah.
He's on like 160
right.
episodes of Suits.
Yeah.
And he's just a character on a bus in this movie.
Yeah. He makes an impression because he's just a dick.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you're going to die soon.
I
There
know.
always has to be one of those people.
And
that
then you
you're
go,
like,
I hope he dies. He died.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very quickly,
Very
too.
quickly. It was very quick satisfaction.
it wasn't like, in a zombie movie, we've talked about it several times, or apocalyptic movie, there's always that asshole that's over the top and you're like counting down the minutes until he's dead. And this one was very quick.
Boom. Minute later, gone.
Yeah. My last one was Sheila McCarthy. She played Judith the librarian at the New York Library, where Sam and his friends are holding up to survive. And the most recent thing she was in was Umbrella Academy. She played, what's her name? She was the donut shop waitress / owner. And she's also been in The Good Doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then also, there was a small cameo. I was going to call it the low-flying helicopter, but in this movie, it was playing a frozen helicopter
Very
that
well
crashes down.
done. Very well done. Good job.
Yeah.
So that's all?
Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Okay. And we're back.
And our next category is called Kids Would Call It a Throwback. We call it the prime of our teens, where we talk about the fashion, dated references, any offensive jokes that we may have. What do you think about the fashion?
I can honestly say I only had one thing,
Yeah.
and it was Jake Gyllenhaal's hair.
It was something.
You know what it reminded me of?
What?
Todd's hair from Wedding Crashers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But the fashion I didn't think was very outdated. I mean, it was just normal 2000s clothes.
The only thing I really noticed was the jacket that Jake Gyllenhaal's character, is wearing when they are flying to New York. It looked like he was going to go teach a class at a university,
Yeah.
that type, like, kind of tweed jacket. I thought it was very fancy for a 17-year-old boy to wear on a plane, but,
Some people view flying as an event.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that
Yeah.
joke.
Yep. That is totally stolen from Family Guy.
But for the most part, I think a majority of the people are wearing the same clothes throughout the movie because it's a disaster film. It's not like they're changing their clothes a lot.
Yeah.
So.
It would be weird if every time Dennis Quaid popped on screen, he had a new shirt on. You're like, dude, it's one day.
Priorities.
Come on.
It's several.
Several, but
Yeah.
the majority of it is a very short time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any dated references or offensive jokes.
Me neither.
And I don't know if it's because there's not like a lot of dialogue that was just floater dialogue or anything. Like everything had a purpose for the most part,
Yeah.
So
No, it
I don't
was. I kept going, there's going to be something in here. And I was waiting to see like something on a billboard. I think there was an advertisement for a flight.
yeah.
It was not.
Oh yeah, because I think they had like a Dennis Quaid and his team when they're traveling to New York. They pass one that says like Hawaii flights.
Yeah.
And
That
that's
was
about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, strong category.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on?
Yes. Our next category, we're going to go ahead and use our candy bar cell phone and talk about some technology.
Are you talking about the cell phone from the guy in Tokyo?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty legit cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't have any technology other than in the scene where LA is getting the tornadoes, there is a group of kids that are recording it with camcorders, I believe.
Yeah.
And the head of the studio is telling them that they need to obviously seek shelter. And I was just thinking if this movie was made today, it would just be people recording with their cell phones, obviously.
As you would expect.
And I would also hope people would be like, priorities. Again, priorities.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I worry about people. The other piece that I caught was Sam using a payphone inside the library to call his dad.
Yeah, that's true.
But
and almost dying.
Yeah, and almost drowning. But the other pieces, I mean, there was some cordless phones, corded phones, the normal technology of the time.
And then, since the main character is a paleoclimatologist, a real thing, by the way, there's a lot of computers, a lot of, radar maps of weather things happening.
Yeah, Doppler.
You don't need to know much about it. It's a thing. It's happening.
There's colors.
Red is bad.
Yeah. Magenta is terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. The world's almost a loss.
You know what's
Magenta
funny?
is covering the map.
Do you remember, it was a couple years ago, you were at work and I was at home, and they were saying near our town that there was going to be a tornado. There was a tornado warning, and the news was freaking out, and they were showing a radar, and there was just a big red scary thing coming towards us, and then it ended up being some hail, I think.
Yeah.
It totally passed us, but that's what I was thinking of, was just I thought something really horrible was coming. In this movie, it does.
Yes. So true.
I did want to talk about the CGI. I know we kind of guessed that the CGI wouldn't hold up, but I was pleasantly surprised at the level of the use of practical stuff.
Yeah.
That they in the first scene where it's kind of a disaster is that Tokyo scene, and they really are using blocks of ice, chunks of ice flying down.
Yeah.
So that looked great, I thought.
The only thing I thought where the CGI got a little questionable was just the scenes where Jack and Jason have arrived walking into New York.
Yeah, the aerial shot.
Yeah, you could tell that was all green screen. But other than that, I thought the CGI was really well done.
Yeah. I think the only other slight one that I thought looked too cartoonish was in the beginning of the movie, they're showing that animals freak out because it's animals know more than we do when nature is going nuts. And they showed the CGI wolves, and I thought they looked a little bad. But then later in the movie, when they're Jake Gyllenhaal and his friends are on that ship that got stuck in front of the library, I didn't think the wolves looked that bad.
No, they really didn't. But I think part of it was very gray.
Yeah, and dark.
And dark, so yeah, they did not look bad at all.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have any, or did you want to talk about the DVD special features or trailers?
The trailers, oh my.
Yeah.
A nice trailer for the movie Man of Fire, which is such an old movie that Dakota Fanning is 8.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of action movies. I, Robot with Will Smith, which might be a good movie for the podcast.
Yes.
Alien versus Predator.
I feel like we don't do enough Will Smith movies given how famous they were.
Yeah, that's
Men in
true.
Black, Independence Day, Bad Boys. There's some good ones there for us.
Yeah, but I also feel like we tend to go down the route of mediocre movies.
Yeah.
And I would say a lot of his picks, especially ones that were big blockbusters, were actually decent movies. That being said, that doesn't mean anything.
We need to go back and watch them to see if they are good movies.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole point of this podcast.
That is what this podcast is.
Did you have any notes about the soundtrack or musical score?
I think there was only one song that I actually knew.
Yeah.
And it was a delightful Do You Really Want to Hurt Me by Culture Club.
I thought it was a weird pick for a high school function.
Yeah.
It worked.
In 2004?
Yeah.
How come Yeah by Usher wasn't playing?
Right.
Or Outkast.
Yeah.
Come on.
Nelly.
I think the older I get, the more I realize Boy George, when he sings, sounds just like George Michael.
For sure. Yeah, I agree.
And I never realized that growing up.
I think I always merged the two because George Michael, Boy George, and then they did sound similar. They're both British, so that kind of just...
I definitely remember us listening to music one time and going, is this George Michael? And we asked Alexa, and she was like, this is Culture Club. And I was like, God damn, they sound the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to talk about as far as the music, when the movie was starting, it was very somber music, and we're making fun of it because it sounded like the opening of a Harry Potter film.
Yes.
Especially the later ones where, things aren't going as great.
Yeah.
It's not, fun magic times. It's like death, death, death.
Yeah, there's death. It wasn't, the highlight of the movie wasn't Harry mispronouncing Diagon Alley. Diagon Alley.
Oh, Harry. Mm-hmm. That's all I had for technology.
Same.
Awesome. The next category is called Is It Even Good?, where we talk about the plot holes, and we discuss our funniest, cringiest moments of the movie and any random thoughts that we might have that we didn't cover. Mm-hmm. So the plot, basically, if we haven't really discussed it yet, is that Jack Hall, paleoclimatologist, real thing, has discovered that we might be in trouble.
We're in deep shit.
Yeah. And at first it's like more like it's going to happen in 100 or 1,000 years.
Yes.
But then stuff starts escalating. Mm-hmm. And nobody believes him, of course. Mm-hmm. It really shadows what we've gone through the past year.
My exact comment was him trying to get the vice president to evacuate the northeastern portion of the United States and getting blown off. They could have changed this movie's title more recently to The Anthony Fauci Story.
Yes. No, I totally agree. And it's funny because I think if we watched this movie, 15 years ago when it came out, I would have been like, I don't think the government would just ignore, like that would be a plot hole for me.
Yes.
But now having the knowledge of having to live through a pandemic and the government not really giving a fuck.
No.
And, the economy, and he even says, the president says, the economy is more important. We can't do anything like this because it would break our economy.
Yeah.
I was like, this is too real. I don't like it.
It really hit home with the politicians denying science.
Yeah. And especially the vice president. And I thought it was funny because there is that scene where Jack is giving a presentation to like basically the United Nations.
Yes.
And all these other countries are asking questions. They're like, when do you think this is going to happen? Mm-hmm. Why do you think this has happened? How can we prevent it? And the United States is like, you're dumb. It sounds stupid. Don't want to do it. And I'm like, this is too real.
This is 2020, folks.
Yeah. That's like the start of the plot, but I think the main plot is the fact that Jack has to go save his son, right? There's like two plots.
Yes.
This disaster is happening, but Jack, feeling guilty because he's always gone from his son's life, goes to New York to save his son.
And I liked when Jack, Frank, and Jason are going to drive from Washington, D.C. to Manhattan to get Sam, and they encounter incredible bad weather, as you would expect in this movie. So they pull over in like Pennsylvania, I would say. And he's like, okay, we're going to walk. And I was like, he's using Cooper's logic from Eurotrip. The United States is the size of the Eastwood Mall. You can walk to New York.
Right. So. No, I mean, he does say, like, I've walked further because he's used to those climates and what they study and they do in, like, Antarctica. But, yeah.
And they were prepared. They had snowshoes. Yeah. They weren't just...
a magical tent that saved them from freezing.
It was a tent maybe from Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Yeah, it was a very nice tent.
They had a Hermione bag. What was your first plot hole?
I'm going to say right off the bat, I don't know too many news helicopters that would be out flying during tornadoes.
I don't know. Sometimes you just need to get that story.
Yeah. And a lot of tornadoes.
Yeah. I mean, maybe because it's such a freak thing. Obviously, there's not a lot of tornadoes in Los Angeles. But yeah, I agree.
I was like, get to safety, guys.
Yeah. Okay, I can understand maybe the president being dismissive of Jack's theory of what's happening or what's going to happen. But then when shit like this starts happening, like the crazy head-shaped or head-sized ice is coming down in Tokyo, and then LA is getting tornadoes, and all this other stuff is happening in different cities. Even Jack's colleagues don't want to believe him.
Yeah.
Here's a lot of evidence that shit is going wrong, and you just want to like chalk it up to being like, it's just a once in a lifetime event.
Yeah.
Well, it is, but it's going to kill a lot of people.
It's going to change lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that Professor Rapson, he's based in Scotland.
Yeah.
and he calls Jack to tell him that people were dying in Scotland because it was negative 150 degrees outside.
Yes.
But he's in this little research shack in Scotland, and they're perfectly fine. They haven't lost power or anything until a little bit later on.
Yeah, I took it as it was slowly reaching them.
Okay.
And that last scene where he's having a drink with his colleagues, that's when it was going to hit. I mean, I have a little problem with it, and it's a plot hole to me, that the freezing storm that's like a typhoon, but it's a freezing storm, only seems to freeze certain people.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of mentioned the magic tent, but I get Jack knows what he's doing, and when he sees that the storm's going to hit him, he's pulling he passed out.
Yes.
And he's pulling his body behind him, and they hide in a Wendy's, and he puts out some burners, but I just don't feel like that would, if it was happening the way they're describing, I think those little burners would have been out.
They wouldn't have been working.
Right.
There's no power. I did love that scene because when Jack is walking and dragging him, you see the Wendy's marquee.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought, he's probably going, you know what I could go for right now? A Baconator.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe a Frosty. But then he used logic and went in there to get away from the elements.
Right. And then, like, when Jason wakes up, because he's pitched the tent inside the kitchen of the Wendy's, and he has the burners on still, but when Jason wakes up, like, everything else is frozen.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the logic in this movie is a little loose.
As I say, like, all the windows had broken. It was snow-filled inside. And exactly, I don't know that they would have a generator or something to get two French fryers turned on.
Yeah,
It
I don't
didn't
know.
make sense.
And the other thing, when you said windows were breaking, was when the storm hits New York, they show all the windows breaking on, like, the Empire State Building and a bunch of other taller buildings nearby. And then the big, huge windows in the library where Sam and his survivors are holding up doesn't break. The only thing I can say is that it's, like, covered in snow already, so maybe that kind of protected it.
And even a little bit prior to that, when they go to the library, I was waiting for the floodwaters to submerge the library.
Yeah, because there is a point where, especially when they're still outside the building, where it looks really, really high. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it does flood, like, the bottom floor, I guess.
Yeah. But it did seem like the water was a few stories high, and then all of a sudden, I guess it's
It's magic.
Well, and also, I guess it is going down the streets.
Yeah.
And constantly.
So it's not concentrated just on the area to the library.
It wasn't just going down 4th Avenue.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a street name. I made it up.
I think it is a street name somewhere in the world.
Yes.
So one of the other plot holes, and it's kind of around that scene where the water's happening, stuff is starting to happen. Obviously, the LA stuff happened, the Tokyo stuff happened, and New York is just getting flooded. Mm-hmm. But it's not like an alarming flood. It's just a lot of water. It's more than what they're used to.
Yeah.
But Jack is telling Sam, you better get home. His 17-year-old son, figure out a way to get home in a place where they've limited travel and people are freaking out. But figure out a way to get home.
Make it happen.
Yeah. So him and his friends are walking, I guess, to the subway. Is that what they were trying to get to?
I think
or the train station? And the water is at least a foot high in some areas, a little higher in others. And I was just thinking that, again, if I watched this movie 15 years ago and I was like, why are there people just walking around with, like, briefcases? Like, this is a normal day. They're trying to literally pretend like nothing is wrong. They're just trying to go through their day and just be oblivious. And then I remembered 2020. Lots of people were doing that. Like, COVID? I got to go to work.
It's just a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people have to work. I'm not saying you shouldn't be working in a pandemic, but just, I'm going to go to the store or I'm going to go on vacation and just, wildly ignore things.
The part that I love that you mentioned was the fact that Jack is like, get home. And
Yeah.
I'm going, they just watched the news where they said all flights are canceled. And maybe this is just, you know what? You stay where you're at.
And then literally, like, 20 minutes later is when the flash flood happens and
Yeah.
the tidal wave, and half the city is underwater.
Yeah.
So where's your 17-year-old son supposed to go? Did you have any other plot holes?
I thought it was incredibly odd that all of a sudden a Russian cargo steamboat just rolls up down the street.
I think they're
Right in
supposed to
front of them.
imply because the ocean has went into the city.
Yeah.
But where are all the people? Did they abandon ship?
Exactly.
Because later in the movie, well, I guess maybe they just don't show it because it's later in the movie. It's like probably a couple days after is when they go on the ship to find the penicillin. There's
Yeah.
like nobody there.
Yeah, they could have abandoned ship at that point, but I just thought, I'm like, was it just a straight shot? Or were you guys taking lefts? You put out the turn signal? I don't know how you were doing.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So I did mention the magical tent and it's another thing that kind of goes with sometimes this, like the storm is super, like it freezes you instantly. Like they show the scene where the helicopters in Scotland are flying and it is so cold. I know they said the temperature, but it froze the fuel line
The fuel
of
line,
the
yeah.
helicopter, and then it instantly froze everybody inside the helicopter.
Yes.
So that happened, but then Jack is in a very similar storm
Yes.
with Jason in a tent, and they're just like cozy, sitting in their tent, drinking, talking.
Everything's fine.
They're not even wearing their coats. They're just like in a sweater. They're in their sleeping bags, but
Yeah.
they're just like leaned back, like having a conversation.
The cold air can penetrate the canvas.
Yeah. Like at least with Sam's scenes, everybody in the library looks like they're cold.
Yes.
And they're constantly freezing, even when they have layers on and they're by the fire.
Yeah.
But for some reason, maybe it's because Jack knows what he's doing. I'm not an outdoorsy person, so I don't know if there's like a tent that's so thick that it's like you were in a house with a heater. I don't know. Maybe.
It could be. Maybe he just had a lot of those hand warmer gel things. Before he left, he stopped by Walmart, bought a bunch of them, and he's just got them down there in his pants and stuff.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I think that's all I had
That
as
is
far
all.
as plot holes.
That is all I had as well.
Awesome. What was your funniest line or moment?
We kind of mentioned the aspects of this being very 2020. There's a scene where Jack's coworker Tom asked Jack, "Why would you irritate the vice president?" And his response was, "Because my 17-year-old knows more about science than he does."
Yes.
And I was thinking, again, things Fauci probably thought about Trump.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I put that as my funniest line too because I thought it was like a laugh out loud moment. I don't know if it was. I think it was meant to be funny,
Yeah.
but also to me, it's that that crying funny. Like, oh God, that's so true.
It's so sad and true.
What was your cringiest line or moment?
My cringiest moment is Jack and Professor Rapson are at this summit in India, in New Delhi. And when they leave, I think Professor Rapson's like, "Can we go get a drink or something?" He's like, "Yeah, why don't you hail a cab?" And Professor Rapson whistles. And Jack was in astonishment that he whistled. He was like, "Huh, he can whistle."
His faces sometimes. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Mine was just a cheesy line that I have noticed, especially action movies that are a little older have these one-liners that when I was a kid, I was probably like, ha ha ha, that's hilarious. But it was when Frank falls from the mall ceiling because they're obviously this is a point where they're walking to New York because their truck couldn't get any further. And I don't think they realize they're walking on top of a mall.
Yeah.
And it has a glass ceiling, and Frank falls through the ceiling, and he's kind of hanging there, and they're like, "Frank," and he's like, "Just dropped in to do a little shopping," and then he dies. Well, I mean, it's a couple minutes later,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
When your life's in peril and you're worried you're going to die, you take the low-hanging fruit and go, what witty joke could I make?
I think I would do that.
I think you probably would.
I would do that. We already established last week that we process our emotions by making jokes,
Yeah.
even when it's uncomfortable.
You'd be like,
And-
I'm just like a cat hanging in there. Like
Okay,
the
I'm going to
poster.
cut myself out of this thing so you guys don't die.
Yeah.
Did you have any random thoughts?
Yes. The opening credits, I thought they could have just changed the name of the movie to Global Warming, the movie. It
Yes.
was literally just icebergs melting. For 3 minutes.
I did like one of the first lines Frank says to Jack is when they're on assignment in Antarctica, I think.
Yeah.
I can't say Antarctica for some reason. And there's a crack in the divide, and that's the whole start of the movie is him realizing that the stuff is melting.
Mm-hmm.
He jumps over the crack to get some research, I think. And Frank's like, you're not going to make it. And I'm like, of course he is going to make it. He's the lead of the movie that just started.
When you said it, I was like, you better write that one
Yeah.
down. Also, it made me think of Dinosaur at Animal Kingdom. Going,
We're not going to make it.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay.
I liked when Sam and Laura and their classmate were flying to New York,
Brian.
and they hit some good old-fashioned turbulence. And Brian has to tell them the statistics of a plane going down due to turbulence, which is the person I want to punch in the face when you're in that situation.
Yeah.
Was maybe don't tell me them.
Yeah, and also later, when they find out that all air travel has been suspended because 2 airplanes had crashed because of extreme turbulence, as they said. I liked that Sam was like, I guess that fact about turbulence isn't true. And I'm like, you're in an extreme situation.
Yeah.
This is not a normal world you live in anymore.
There's crazy storms happening outside, bud.
Yeah. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I wanted to talk about the security guard at the library being way too serious about his job.
I totally think it goes along with the whole people don't want to be inconvenienced or they don't want to change their way of life, or not way of life, that's a little extreme, but like the rules.
Yeah.
Like he's still living in the world of there's no dogs allowed in the library.
Yeah. Who cares? This homeless guy is trying to get outside from the 3-foot flooding that is occurring.
Yeah.
And he has a dog.
At that point, there's like mass hysteria. There's, like you said, about 3 feet of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did like at one point he just turns around and he's like, screw it, I'm going in there. And I was like, and the guy kind of looked at him, the security guard looked at the homeless guy like, oh, okay. I guess
Joke's
he
on
can
that
be-
guy. He was one of the ones that were like, we're not going to believe this 17-year-old boy who said his dad's a paleoclimatologist. That's
Real thing.
real. Paleoclimatologist. All right. I think I'm saying it worse every time I say it. And then they had to get real depressing with that group. I believe it's when Jack and Jason are hitting like the city limits. They just see all the dead people, and you could see the police officer that was like, I'm not going to believe you, kid. We gotta get out of here.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, he got his.
I did like at the end of the movie, the vice president, who has been a dick this whole entire movie, does not want to listen to Jack at all, has since become the president because the president died
Yes.
in a helicopter crash. And he gives a speech and he's talking about how he was wrong. And it was just, something that politicians should know how to do.
Admit they were wrong?
Admit they are wrong. Be held accountable for their words and actions.
You're crazy.
I know. I'm so crazy.
I loved the part where you see the Americans fleeing into Mexico, but the movie Due Date with Zach Galifianakis and Robert Downey Jr. Has officially ruined Mexico border crossings for me, because every time I see them, it just is a normal border crossing. It says Mexico over top. I just think of that scene where Zach Galifianakis goes, "That's Mexico? I thought it said Texaco. We need gas."
Yeah.
Every time. Makes me think of it. God.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
No.
Shall we take a break
Yes.
and then come back?
Sounds like a plan.
Or should we not come back?
Nah.
We
I guess
should-
we should come back.
yeah.
Yeah. We'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. As always on Ruining Our Childhood, it is award season. We give out 2 awards every week. The first of which is a valedictorian to the Nicolas Cage Online School of Bad Acting. Whom did you give your award to?
I gave mine to Dennis Quaid.
What?
Jack Hill himself.
Uh-huh.
Purely, I mean, there are so many people you could have chose, but purely because of all the stupid faces he would make throughout the movie. There are so many instances where he just has this look on his face like he hates everyone around him.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it's not appropriate to have that face. I get when he's arguing with the vice president having that face.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when he's talking to his friends and colleagues, he has that face. when they are driving to New York and they have to stop and get out, he's like, unpack the snowshoes. And he looks so pissed. Like he's mad at...
Like they caused the storm.
Yeah, that Frank and Jason caused it. And when he sacrifices himself, and I want to say Jason, it's that scene where they're in the tent and the third cup tumbles out.
Yes.
And Jason looks all sad. But then Dennis Quaid looks like he just was mildly inconvenienced.
He gives you that look that I felt it was more the look your dad gave you when you spilled something.
Yeah.
It was like that look of disgust, not
It's like
sadness of, oh, we packed 3 cups and there's only 2 of us because 1 died.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, that reminds me, my friend died. It was like, thanks for the reminder that my friend died.
You did that on purpose.
And then he looked so angry at the Wendy's, too, when he saw the Wendy's. I can only imagine, because a lot of this probably was green screen. They're like, now look angry. Now look distressed.
Now look like you want a Baconator.
But, yeah, I mean, he wasn't, obviously Dennis Quaid isn't a bad actor. I just thought in this film, like, the faces were funny, and obviously he's more centered because he is the main character.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I agree Dennis Quaid was not great, but I gave mine to Kenneth Walsh,
Okay.
who plays the vice president. It was because it really hit home.
Yeah.
More than anything. I don't think he was a bad actor or anything like that. It was just, like we mentioned, the parallels with 2020. You have politicians denying science, and it was just, half the United States is possibly dead.
Yeah.
Because we have politicians that deny science.
Right.
That was very frustrating to me, and he was the person that played that character, so he got the award.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Ryan. Just playing fast and loose with the rules of the awards. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, how many times have we chosen just because we didn't like the character?
Mm-hmm. I do it all the time.
The next award is the Thomas J. Hanks Award for Exceptional Acting. Who did you give the award to?
I ended up giving it to Jake Gyllenhaal. There wasn't any over-the-top amazing acting in this movie. I think I enjoyed his storyline the most, and his character was endearing, and I kind of went, I was around the same age at this time as him. I can't imagine trying to go through New York and try to get home at that age.
Yeah.
So I thought he did a good job.
I also gave it to Jake Gyllenhaal, mostly for the same reasons. I thought his character was more likable than Dennis Quaid's character. And, for a kid who's 17, he had to do all this stuff, and he became like this little leader of the survivors at the library.
Mm-hmm.
And though he didn't convince everybody that was originally at the library, I think there was like 20 people that left.
Yeah.
And again, they're all dead.
They did.
But there was like 5 people that stayed with him.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the smart people.
I was going to say, they made the right decision.
Yeah. So I like his character, and Jake Gyllenhaal's a good actor. So
yeah, he is.
I said, good actor.
Good actor.
Shall we answer the age-old question of this podcast? Do you think this movie held up to your adult standards?
I'm going to say it did, but it was very close because I thought there was a lot of unnecessary parts to this movie.
Yeah.
There was this weird C-plot with Sam's mom, the doctor, like, I need to get transportation for my patient, so I'm going to stay at the hospital, but it's not developed at all.
It's not developed, and that was a plot hole that I missed, because I thought I would have hoped that the hospital would have arranged transportation for a child who has leukemia.
Yeah.
But apparently he was forgotten.
Yes.
I mean, it worked out in the end, but still.
That part, and then the portion with the Russian cargo ship with wolves on it that were at the zoo, and now they're on. I was like, you're just creating drama for drama's sake.
Or the fact that they even had to go to the ship because Emmy Rossum's leg got cut.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they're already battling this.
Yes.
This climate. I guess they have to have more action and more conflict. Otherwise, it would just be a bunch of scenes of them sitting there waiting for somebody to save them.
I didn't think those were even necessary. You could have just got rid of that and it wouldn't have hurt the movie any.
Okay.
But those were my only really knocks. I mean, yeah, there were some plot holes, but I thought at the end of the day, it was an entertaining action movie.
Yeah.
And a fun one.
I agree that it held up.
Okay.
I think what did it for me was the fact that the CGI did hold up for the most part. And I think the leads could have been a little better overall. Mm-hmm. I thought the plot was fine for a disaster movie. And I think it was a little more based in reality versus some other disaster movies.
Yes.
I mean, it's something, I think I said this at the beginning of the podcast, I don't know if it would exactly happen like this because we destroy our planet slowly throughout time.
Yeah.
But if it did, if we live in Arizona, we're going to be okay. We're probably going to get some snow.
Exactly.
So.
But yeah, I agree with you about one of the biggest things was I was very worried about the CGI and thought it was going to be pretty bad. And it wasn't. CGI was fine. Acting was okay. It was a decent movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right.
Awesome. Great.
Fantastic.
Cool. So, this is the time where I tell you what's on deck for next week.
Yes.
So let me do that.
I like how you used on deck.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that not right?
No. Works for me.
Okay. So next week's lineup is Dr. Dolittle versus 2012.
Oh.
So potential back-to-back apocalyptic action movies.
All right.
Don't forget to help us decide by voting on our Twitter poll. We're at ROC Movie Podcast on Twitter, and that will be up on Thursdays. And then on Fridays, I said Fridays.
On Fridays.
On Fridays, it's going to be on our Instagram at Ruining Our Childhood. And yeah.
Which one do you think is going to win? Because we said we were going to do this.
That's true. Yeah. Good job for remembering.
Thank you.
I think Dr. Dolittle's going to win. I hope that people are like, okay, we got the apocalyptic movie out of the way. Okay. Let's change it up. Let's do a comedy. Have some laughs.
All right.
What do you think?
I'm going to agree with you. I think that's a good thought. I don't think people want to hear 2 apocalyptic movies in a row.
You never know.
That is true.
They'll let us know.
Yes. Because maybe that one will have even more low-flying helicopter.
Oh, I can only hope.
God, I hope so.
So, again, thanks for listening, guys. Don't forget to check out ruiningourchildhood.com for show notes and other fun things. We should be having our minisode for the Ruiners Club coming up at the end of the month, which is awesome.
Yes.
Right? And, yeah.
Do you want to say what movie it is?
Go ahead. Do it.
We're going to do The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Yes. Ben Stiller. Great movie.
It's a very good movie. It's a movie that puts us in a good mood. So we wanted to kick off January on a positive note. So hopefully it'll help put people in a good mood.
That was the theory.
That was
when we planned it in December.
Yes. And
this year's already on a decline.
Agreed.
But, maybe we could just pretend like everything's okay. So
it's what we do.
Right. We'll be back next week.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.